Hey guys, Pretzelman945 here. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I am going to be doing a video type that um I've been looking forward to doing for a while, and it's a list I have not updated in about 3 years. It's my top favorite anime moments or episodes. But this video is a little bit different because I um I do not have like a top 10 or a top 20 list this time. Because by this point I have seen so many anime, and my favorite animes have way too many individual moments, several of them do anyway, that I just can't really pick like one to go in a single top 20 list. So instead, what I've decided to do for this list was I went through my top 20 anime, and I did only top 20 because beyond that would just be ridiculous, considering the amount I'm going to yap just about the top 20. Um, but this is a little bit different than my previous list in that I'm also including individual episodes on here because for some of these shows, in my opinion, is like a certain episode that like really make um is my favorite part of the show, and there's like multiple moments in one episode, and so therefore I include an entire episode. um it's not the case for many of these, but there are a few where it's like I picked an episode. Um, so yeah, let's dive into it. We are going in order of my top 20, so this will give you the order of that list, even if I'm not making an official video on that, if you're curious about it. Um, so first up is, or I guess number 20, Hellsing Ultimate. And my favorite moment from Hellsing Ultimate is the fight, or I guess the full-on battle between Alucard and Anderson, which ends in Anderson's final defeat. Um, and the reason why this is one of my favorite fights in all of anime, and also my favorite moment from this show, is because everything in this show is badass or farming cool shit. But like this fight is one of the absolute pinnacles of that because it is this final showdown between these two characters that were already almost ready to fight on a dozen different occasions and were aura farming the shit out of and we're just aura farming like nobody's business every single time. And so this is just the absolute pinnacle of all of that, and that is why I love it. At number 19, Vinland Saga. What my favorite moment from Vinland Saga next up is Thorfinn and Canute's conversation on the cliff. Now, I realize this is a bit broad to be considered like one moment because I'm pretty sure that this like sort of series of conversation is also like um uh the entirety of which like the I have no enemies line comes in. But I wanted to go a bit more broad than that because as peak of a moment as that is, like I really don't want to undersell that. That moment is genuinely fucking incredible, but it is not my favorite part of this conversation because my favorite part of this conversation, this dialogue that Thorfinn and Canute have, is uh is the way that it um really reveals so much about Canute's character. And it just like exemplifies the absolute um crazy amount of change that he goes on from being a coward in season one who only wanted to hide behind rock, um, to just like having this complete opposite worldview to Newt, to Thorfinn, I mean, um, and yet they like through their talking, despite the fact that they have seemingly like opposing uh philosophies, they actually come to an agreement on certain things. And to me, the way that this entire conversation like exemplifies the peak um of the development of both of these characters and their lasting relationship is just beautiful. It's so cool to watch, and that's why it is my favorite part, moment, whatever you want to call it, of Vinland Saga. Sorry for the cut. I had to look up some details to make sure I was talking about the right episode for this next one. So next up is Violet Evergarden. My favorite episode from Violet Evergarden is episode 9. And the reason that this episode is my favorite, like I had to it's been a while since I wrote some of this stuff down. I had to kind of look up a summary to make sure I was talking about the right episode. I had written it down and stuff. Um, Episode 9 is my favorite episode because it feels like a sort of first climax in a way. Um, In fact, in a way it sort of does feel like the climax of the show in a way, and then the remaining episodes are sort of a falling action thing because the episode starts with like a battlefield and a young Violet who gets both of her arms blown off as she's trying to save a wounded Gilbert, and Gilbert like tells her to leave to survive, and tells her that he loves her, um, and in this episode, it's like she finally understands what that means, and because like the entire point of Violet's character up to this point was like trying to lean on a memory doll, write letters for people to experience emotion, to experience what love meant because she could not figure out that statement. And in this episode, she finally learns what that means and what Gilbert meant by saying it to her as he died. Um, of course, we know he's not actually dead because of the movie, but as she thought that he died, um, and and the way that it acts as just this beautiful climax of Violet's character in the way that, like she almost tries to commit suicide, but then like she learns, but then she realizes that like she has gained good from learning to feel emotions, and it's not like exactly such a bad thing, even if it can have bad moments. And it is such a beautiful human moment. Um, there are so many moments like that in this episode, and that's why it's my favorite episode of um, Violet Evergarden. Now, there are a lot of shows on this list I have here, which some of them, quite a few, were super easy to pick a moment that or episode or whatever that was my favorite. Um, the one, the first one here that was the hardest by far to pick one because there are so many good moments in this show with Gurren Lagann. Um, now I fucking love Gurren Lagann. Gurren Lagann is so peak. It is like the best mecha anime by far. Unless you count Attack on Titan as a mecha, which I do think there is a reasonable argument for that. Um, and my favorite moment from Gurren Lagann, there are so many good ones. Like, for example, I could have gone the same route as Hellsing Ultimate, and I could have picked the entire battle of uh, the entity of Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann versus the Anti-Spiral at the very end of the show. Um, but I decided to go with probably the most classic choice, uh, in terms of like the best moment from Gurren Lagann, and that is Kamina's sacrifice. Um, and honestly, I probably could have picked this entire episode because, like, it starts out with this beautiful romantic confession moment between Yoko and Kamina. Um, but I think I'm specifically going with the moment itself here because of the fact that the moment itself, compared to the other parts of the episode, to me, kind of carry a little bit more meaning. Um, and this moment is so powerful for so many reasons that have probably been explained by people a lot better at this than me. But I love this moment because not only is Kamina like this absolute Giga Chad who uh you don't expect to die, at least you wouldn't if you weren't spoiled on it, like I was. But even still, like the fact that I was spoiled on this moment doesn't take away from how awesome it is, because like everything that the show had built up Kamina to be an absolute Giga Chad, it completely worked. Regardless of whether you knew this was going to happen or not, it still worked because Kamina was beautifully set up to be such a Giga Chad that um his sacrifice just has so much Giga Chad energy. And obviously that the best part about this sacrifice is the way that it subsequently affects Simon's development. Um and it like gives him the value of manhood and what it means to be a strong man and have courage. Um and it's incredible like how some stories can just have one character death and it affects the development of the main character for the entirety of the story, and Gurren Lagann is one of those fantastic examples. That is why a communist sacrifice is my favorite moment from Gurren Lagann. My favorite moment from Madoka Magica, this was one that I kind of knew instantly, is Homura Akemi's backstory. Uh, I'm pretty sure this is over the course of one episode, but it may also be multiple, so I'm not completely sure on that. But the reason why this backstory is my favorite part of Madoka Magica is because throughout the entirety of the story, Homura as a character was like extremely standoffish and seemingly like super protective of Madoka and or of Haname, uh who is her first name, I think. Uh I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna call her Madoka for simplicity's sake. Um, like she was so seemingly protective of Madoka, and we didn't really know why. And then and then we see this backstory, and Um, and it's revealed that her like magical girl power is the ability to time travel. And then we see her backstory where, in like an alternate timeline, he was at the same school and Madoka became her only friend. And the friendship that the two of these had was so powerful, because like Madoka sort of gained powers in that alternate timeline, whereas Homura didn't. Um, and she was unable to do anything to save Madoka, her best friend, and so therefore that's the reason why she was actually so protective of her. And the way that her entire character, Homura's character, was executed to me is just beautiful. And it like it's so well done. I love it. Like it's one of my favorite anime backstories. I don't remember where it ranked on that list I made, but it's one of my favorite anime backstories because it's such a beautiful uh way to uh pay off the build up that her character had gotten up to that point. Um yeah, next up is Maiden Abyss, and this is another one that I think was pretty simple for me. This is another one where I picked an episode, and my favorite episode of Maiden Abyss is season one, episode 13, because this episode is essentially the entirety of Nanachi's backstory. And even though the last one was a backstory, I remember this more definitively as being a singular episode that was really powerful to me. Um, because like up to that point, Nanachi had seemed like a sort of strange character, but also very charming. Um, And then like this backstory is revealed, and it's so tragic. It's so tragic. It's like twice as tragic as Homer's backstory. Um, because it's like I'm trying to remember how it even goes. It's been a long time since I watched Made Abyss, but uh it's like she meets Nanachi meets her best friend who it's eventually revealed, like they build a beautiful friendship, and then like they have to get separated from each other due to what eventually revealed in the movie as Bondrewd's experiments. But we don't know it's Bondrewd at the time. Think. I don't think it's revealed in that episode. I think he is just revealed in the movie, but I could be wrong about that. Um, uh, so they build up a beautiful friendship, and then like they have to be separated from each other due to brutal experiments, and like um, Mi- Michi. I'm trying to remember uh the name of it. Uh, Trying to see what was this. Yes, Mitty. Yes, 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 yes. I don't remember if. Well, yeah, it must have been her actual name. Uh, but like her and what, like Mitty is like this creature, like a pet that she seems to have. From when she's introduced, and it's like this adorable little mysterious creature, just seemingly like any other. creature in the abyss. And then it's revealed that like her best friend from her flat from this flashback becomes Mitty through these brutal experiments, and that's why she's so attached to Mitty. And it's just like it's so tragic, and it's what made Nanachi my favorite character and made the Abyss not even close. Um, and I realized I went out of order, but it's fine. I don't think it's a big deal for something like this. Um, so for reference, To Your Eternity is below Made in Abyss on my personal list, although that might change with the season four. Please give me a season To Your Eternity, please, I beg. But with the season four, potentially it might go above. But that being said, my favorite moment from To Your Eternity. This was another one that was very hard to pick. Because there are so many incredible moments. Um, uh, with uh, in across all three seasons. In terms of like characters passing away that really affect Fushi as a person. But I think that, in my opinion anyway, uh, none of these have a greater effect than Gugu's death protecting Ween. Um, Now this is payoff to the buildup of them, like being friends as children and eventually growing to love each other. Um, and then like at her 16th birthday party where it almost seems like they're going to confess their love to each other, and I think they eventually do as Gugu is dying. um and it's because of the knockers. And the other thing that makes this moment my favorite in Maiden Abyss is that like this moment right here, like of all the moments and like emotional timing and like causes of character deaths that the knockers have caused, this one in my experience watching the show made them the most hateable by far. Like the peak of my hatred of the knockers was at this moment right here, I think. Um and I think that just outlines what a brilliant antagonistic force that the knockers are. Um and also the way that this like contributes to Fushi's development is just immaculate because like he viewed Gugu as a brother. Like I would argue it's probably the closest relationship he'd had to a person in the show thus far, except for Mark. Um, I think second only to Mark in that respect. Um, and it means that like um, it actually like if I remember correctly, like he ends up taking on the form of Gugu and lying to Reen um for a little bit actually. Yeah, now that I say that out loud, I think that's actually what happened. Which like now that I remember that, it's like I forgot how tragic it was also because of that. Um because like, this is such a powerful turning uh, that thing I remembered is even more is why this moment is even better for Fuji's development to me because of the fact that um uh it's because of the fact that like he can't cope with Dudu's death, and so he takes on his body and pretends to be him and lies to Reen because he himself can't come to terms with it. And I feel like him having to do this and like overcome Gugu's death is like a crucial turning point for Fuji's character in terms of like accepting the deaths of his loved ones. And that is why that is my favorite moment of True Your Eternity. Um, okay, moving to Black Clover. My favorite moment in Black Clover is Julius's sacrifice when he loses the battle against Patri, and sacrifices himself by using this massive time magic spell to save everyone in the uh, Clover Kingdom. Um, And the reason why this is my favorite moment is because, similar to the Kamino one, like Julius had been built up as this awesome, super powerful dude. Um, and because of the fact that Patri was sharing an identity with William Vengeance, there is also like an extra complicated layer of the fact that um Julius felt a connection to uh felt quite a profound connection to Vengeance as a person that mentored him, um as in Julius mentored Vengeance, in case my wording was unclear there. uh and and like the way that he sacrifices himself to save literally everybody, and Patri just did not expect this to was just beautiful. um and it's like this awesome culmination of their entire fight, which is already like one of my favorite fights in all of anime. Uh, and so that is why this moment is my favorite from Black Clover. Um, Pluto is another one where I chose the episode, and Pluto, in my opinion, has the best first episode in all of anime. I've talked about this before when I made a list on my favorite anime first episodes. Oh, when did I make that list? Let's see. Uh, about 6 months ago. Okay. Um, More recent than I thought, to be honest, but a lot of my lists tend to jumble together after a while. Um, so I guess it would be more like 7 months ago since we're in June now. Um, the reason why this is my favorite episode of Pluto and also my favorite first episode in all of anime is because no other first episode, despite the fact that this has the 1 hour long buff, it still does more than any other like 1 hour long first episode I've ever seen. So, I don't feel like I'm giving it extra advantage points because of the fact that it is a full hour long. Um, And not only does this brilliantly introduce the incredible mystery and a bunch of the major characters within it, but also within all but also while doing all of that, it within the span of a single episode, it this episode tells the very powerful story of a blind composer, a old blind composer, musician like Beethoven type figure, um, who gets one of the major robots, North Number Two, as his like protection, and actually it's more like a butler robot, and like the connection that they manage to form and the relationship that they tend to build in literally like the span of just an episode, amidst everything else going on, with brilliantly setting up the mystery and also introducing the other characters. um it's just like it's genius storytelling, like Naoki Urasawa could do and only he could do. Um, and if I remember correctly, after I watched this episode, like just episode one, I gave it a 10 on Mal, and I think that is the fastest I have ever given a show a 10 on Mal. Is Pluto after just finishing episode one. Um, that's why episode one is my favorite episode of Pluto. Um, next up is Dragon Ball Z, and my favorite moment, or I guess series of moments in Dragon Ball Z is Vegeta becoming Super Saiyan, and also when he destroys the shit out of Android 19. Um, This is my favorite moment in Dragon Ball Z because I think that it is the pinnacle of Vegeta's, or one of the pinnacles of of Vegeta's development as a character, because it um like him having to struggle with failure, and that's where his emotion comes from to, to actually activate Super Saiyan for the first time is just so powerful. And then like him beating the shit out of Android 19 is like him showcasing his power. It's like his pride is fully back. It is just completely awesome to see him do that. And it feels like such a satisfying payoff for all the build up to him finally achieving Super Saiyan. And I like this better. I like this moment better than Goku achieving Super Saiyan. Um, Mostly because I like Vegeta and his arc better. Um, and I feel like this moment as the culmination of Vegeta's arc is more powerful of an emotional moment than it is with Goku, despite the fact that I love Goku doing it too. It's an iconic moment, it's great, but I prefer Vegeta's moment, and that's why it's my favorite moment in Dragon Ball Z. And um, next up is Hunter x Hunter, and my favorite moment from Hunter x Hunter. This might be the easiest one to decide in the entire list, to be honest. Um, it was Requiem Arania slash Frollo conducting slash the Phantom Troop raids the Mafia building. Whatever you want to call that moment, that is my favorite moment from Hunter x Hunter. And the reason for it has always been I knew that was my favorite one from Hunter x Hunter, but the reason why is it's always been a bit hard for me to describe, but like I think a big part of it is just the fact it is so fucking badass and insane. And I feel like it is the culmination of everything being completely badass and insane with the York New City arc, where everything, especially compared to the Hunter exam and Heaven's Arena, the arcs before it, it just seems to be this completely crazy turn and tonal shift. And I think that this moment right here is the perfect epitome of that incredible and just shocking tone change that this entire arc is. And it is also just so fucking badass to see all of these Phantom Troop members fight at the peak of their abilities. Um, and just absolutely decimate everyone as revenge for Uvogin's death, despite the fact they didn't know it was Kurapika at the time, I don't think. Um, at number, or not number, next up is Monster. Um, and, um, this is another one that's out of order only because I changed the order of my top 10 around a lot, not long after finishing Legend of the Galactic Heroes, actually. Uh, that moved up a lot for reference, and so did Monster, moved up a few spots. Everything was kind of shuffled around my top 10. So as a result, this is not in order from this point on. But I didn't uh, feel like rewriting everything just to make it in perfect order. So yeah, we're not gonna worry about that actually. Um, but anyway, my favorite episode from Monster. Um, this is the last one where I picked an entire episode. Okay, I had to read a summary of that one again just to kind of remember everything because uh there is so much I have to say about this episode in particular. This episode is genuinely it would be so hard for me to make a list like this, but I genuinely think this episode is like top five, maybe even top three favorite individual anime episodes of all time for me. Um, because there is so much that happens in this episode. Not only do we have the insane fight between Roberto and Tenma, which is just this absolutely nail biting confrontation uh, that ends with neither one of them able to shoot the other. Tenma, because of his limitations and value, and this is like a crucial turning point for his character regarding that, by the way. Um, but also like Roberto, just because I don't remember why he wasn't able to shoot him. I know he tried. Maybe it might have been just because he missed all his shots. Um, there's also this has been like the culmination of a arc about this character named Shoebald, who was like this person that this retired old man that Johan was like helping out, and that was like his most recent cover job as he gained more power and stuff like that. As Tenma was trying to pursue him. Um, and and there is this intense confrontation between the two of them where Shoeball demands to know like the answers uh of who he is, where did he really come from? Because at this point, like the entire library is burning. Uh, the place that Shoeball was going to give a seminar at was this library was like burning down. All the people were trapped inside by Johan's accomplices, and he questioning Johan, who are you? What is behind this? And Johan tells his story. He tells the fact that he was this um uh he tells like what his nature is to Shoeball, and um while this is going on, like Carl, who is Shoeball's son, I believe, or he was like a helper to him, and it was like revealed that he was his son or something. I think I don't exactly remember, but he was. I remember he was like investigating his mother, and he finds out that um, his mother had a friend who had a pair of twins, and these twins were Nina and Johann, and Nina eventually shows up at the library and um but then Johann just is able to walk away because no one is able to do anything to him. Uh and this to me is like the absolute climax of the show. It is like the most tense moment. It is the most intense confrontation. It is both like the most tense and intense part of the show simultaneously. And there is so few animes that like can balance that within a single episode to me, and that is why this is my favorite episode of Monster and one of my favorite anime episodes of all time. Um, Next up is Frieren. And my favorite moment from Frieren is her restoring the Blue Moon flower field. And this is my favorite moment from Frieren, even though I could have picked many. Because of the fact that this is like I think the first major point where she really shows the lessons that she learned from Himmel and traveling with him. Um and just my gosh, the music by Evan Cole, like it's my favorite soundtrack of all time. And this is the reason why not my absolute favorite because that goes to Fear in the Slayer, but uh one of my favorite songs in the soundtrack is this song because it is such a beautiful song. Like my gosh. Um it is such a beautiful song. And it like beautifully accompanies uh the entire magic pun not intended there, but the word choice works really well here. The entire magic of her seeing her perform this spell. Um and yeah, I just love this moment. It's such a beautiful moment to me. Um Next up is Steins Gate, and my favorite moment from Steins Gate is Mayuri's death because this moment is really like when shit hits the fan in Steins Gate. It is like one of the first climaxes after all the time traveling that they were doing where everything goes wrong. And this is to me what like I already loved Okabe's entire personality, but this is what kicks his character into high gear here because he goes through these constant time loops of like having to resolve everyone's problems and redo everything that he had changed through the time because he wanted to undo Myri's death. And not only is his reaction here just fucking brilliant, uh, because it is so tragic the breakdown that he has, and especially because Mayuri is like one of the most innocent characters in all of anime. Uh, and the fact that she was the one that ended up dying here and ends up dying over and over again, and Okabe had to experience that same moment in a ton of different ways over and over again, despite all that he tries to do, is just, it is so tragic and yet brilliant. Um, uh, Next up is Code Geass. And I mean, this should be quite obvious. Although there were a few moments that I did consider putting as my favorite in Code Geass, but I mean, the ending has to be the best part of Code Geass. Like, um, it is the greatest ending in fiction, tied with Attack on Titan for me on that one. Um, and it is just beautiful. Uh, like it is beautiful how perfect of an ending it is, how perfect it like maintains the integrity of every single character in the show, in particular Lelouch, uh, who by the final episodes with his whole shtick of becoming emperor and everything, it seemed like at least in my experience watching it, there was like this almost crucial faltering of like the Lelouch's character lost the plot kind of thing, but then this ending happens and it just makes everything that happened with his character so much more brilliant because of the way that he ends up staying completely true to his initial promise to his sister and um and just going out. uh Okay, I am back after eating lunch because I got really hungry. Now, to finish off the list, next up is Fruits Basket. And this is the first example out of the rest of the animes on this list in this video that have more than one entry for my favorite because I found it hard to pick just one for a lot of these to talk about. So, um, for Fruits Basket, I have two. Um, Toru saving Kyo in season one. I love this moment because it is a brilliant way to kick off their romance essentially. And develop the very deep caring relationship between each other that they both are able to save each other, and that's why they learn to love each other, and it's amazing. Um, and also, I I kind of wrote down Shigure plus Akito, and I can't really remember one specific moment that I was thinking of with this. I was just kind of thinking of the sort of moments of them together where like Akito realizes that he can um learn to love and doesn't have to like abide by the traditions of the family and stuff like that. And so, yeah. um, I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to include that one and just say Tori saving Kyo is my singular favorite moment for Fruits Basket. But these top four are actually in order. So, number fourth anime, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Um, uh, I have four different moments on this. The first one I want to talk about is Royenthal's speech. Royentthal makes several great speeches, so I need to be specific. It's about the one that he makes, um, when his, how to say, when the, when the mother of his child, to put it in the nicest way, is sort of trapped in the bed, and he makes the speech about like um power and sort of his own desires. It's like the first thing that establishes Royal as his own fantastic character, and I really love that. Um, and then, of course, you have to include the meeting between Yang and Reinhardt because that had so much build up, and the build up, the payoff was worth all the build up and all the waiting that it took to get to that moment because it was absolutely incredible. It was so cool to see the two of these characters that only met this one time in the entire show, and that meeting was worth all the build up because the dialogue between the two in this scene is like somehow some of the best in the entire show when this show has like consistently some of the best dialogue in fiction. Um and then of course I feel like um the two deaths that are most significant to this story, Yang and Kirky Ice, are the other two that I want to talk about. Kirky Ice first because it's simpler. Um, Not only does is it very sad because Kirky Ice was just like an incredible character and this amazing sort of foil to Reinhardt and a check that kept him in place. And when he dies, it's insane how like much Reinhardt's character changes in just one episode, and he never really recovers from that change. And that's what I love about like the lingering effects that deaths have in Legend of the Galactic Heroes is that like the impact of a character is never really forgotten, and I love the way that like certain animes can like show the effect of dead characters long after they have died on a character that's still alive. And Legend of Galactic Heroes does this probably better than any other anime I've ever seen. Maybe even better than any piece of fiction I've ever seen. Um, and the way that it affects Reinhardt's character so much in just one episode, and like the way that it was sort of acting as a step um between where like he was beginning to like falter between the influence of Oberstein and Kircheis, and then once Kircheis is gone, it's like Reinhardt's character only took influence from Oberstein's direction, or more so that direction. Even though Hilda became a sort of replacement, that's all it was, really was a replacement in the way that he was never able to exert the same influence that Kirkiais was, and it was like trying to pull someone back from falling off a cliff, and there was still this back and forth, but it was still like Hilda wasn't powerful enough to stop Reinhardt from leading in that direction. It was all caused by Kirgiais' death, and that one makes it a brilliant moment. But even more so than that is Yang's death, because the way that he goes out could not have been a more fitting death for his character to me. Um, the fact that like he as this as like um as I talked about in my original review of it, like this show is such a masterful um like comprehensive understanding of the way that history works and how history is told through such a grand narrative scale. And despite the fact that like Yang would be a person who is remembered by history, he wasn't the one that was making history, and so therefore he died in the way that was representative of that. And I think that because of that, like the more I've thought about it, the more I think about like the way that his death plays into the masterful way that Legend of the Galactic Heroes pays respect to the nature of history and the way it is told, makes it my individual favorite moment. But all of these are very close for me. Um, Next up is One Piece, and I have five of them that I want to talk about here. These are not in order exactly, but the Nothing Happened moment is one of my favorites because it's like Zoro's best moment. It shows his commitment to the crew and to the captain, and it's awesome. And also, it is just so fucking badass. Um, that's the simplest one to talk about by far. Robin's I Want to Live moment. So many people have talked about this probably better than me. It is a beautiful moment that is a beautiful payoff to all of her character build up and her accepting that she wants to live and like she wants to make friends and do all these things that she never got in her childhood. The next one is the Straw Hat separation in Sabaody, and this has always been this is like the One Piece moment that came closest to making me cry, um, because it was so powerful. Seeing Luffy's breakdown at this was just unbelievably tragic, and the sheer hopelessness that you feel along with every one of the characters as they are just all not only just sent away by Kuma period, but also just like before that, the way they are completely brutalized and beat down with no hope of winning by all the pacifistas and Sentomaru and Kizaru, they just get completely destroyed. And that like um and the sheer hopelessness that like I felt while watching all of that was just incredible. Um, my second favorite moment in One Piece, I will say these are the top two, I think. is Kuma running, and this is still one of my favorite manga panels to this day, and it was adapted even more beautifully than I could have ever imagined into the anime with episode 1136. Episode 1136 is like one of the best One Piece episodes of all time to me. Um, but this moment in particular, it's like near the end of the episode, and it like flashes through all of his stages of life as he's just running through all of them. And it is such a beautiful, profound moment that is my favorite part of the entire flashback, and all of Egghead for that matter. Um, but my favorite moment in One Piece is Whitebeard's death and him saying the One Piece is real, because not only is his death like the most Giga Chad death of all time with the amount of like the statistics of the wound that he took, um, I wrote an entire college essay on this in like one of my beginning lit classes in my freshman year, just about this moment alone. It was like a 9 paragraph essay, or a 9 paragraph rhetorical analysis essay on just this one moment. Um, because there is so much to it. To me, it like fundamentally changed everything about the scale and nature of the One Piece story up to that point, and um, it will always be my favorite moment in One Piece, just like Whitebeard will always be my favorite character, I think. Um, okay, so we have four here from um. Yeah, I picked the most for One Piece, but I want to talk about the moments in the top two here more. Uh, so next up is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, my second favorite anime. I have four here. Um, the first one is obviously Hughes's funeral because, like, he was a goaded character that no one expected to die that early, but he did because he figured out the entire plan, like, right then. That's how goaded he was. Um, and just like like Roy Mustang's reaction to it with the terrible day for rain was just beautiful. The tragic music, like everyone's reactions, and the way that that sort of fundamentally set a different kind of tone that the story had moving forward was just incredible to me. Um, okay, next up, another pretty simple one to talk about. One of my favorite moments from Full Alchemist Brotherhood is the plot twist and reveal that Pride is a little boy. Because this was always like one of the most shocking. But this is the most shocking reveal in the show to me because like it was already shocking enough to reveal that the Fuhrer was actually a homunculus himself being Wrath. But then, like, his son, a little boy that seemed to be innocent up until now, is actually, like, one of the most evil homunculi of them all. And consequently, my favorite homunculi character is Pride. Um, and so that reveal was just amazing. It was so surprising. Um, My second favorite moment in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is Greed's death toward the end of the show. And throughout the entirety, ever since um Greed overtakes Lin Yao's body, the two of them have an extremely complicated dynamic. Um where like the two of them are constantly fighting for control of the body, and they like eventually learn to accept each other, and this eventually involves Greed's sacrificing himself to ensure Lynn's survival, which just shows the really close friendship that they developed. And I think their dynamic is the most unique in the entire show probably, the um and the payoff that this is made by Greed's sacrifice is just incredible. Um, my favorite moment is Also up there with my favorite fights in anime, although it isn't as much of a fight because Roy Mustang destroys the fuck out of Envy, and it is so satisfying because Envy is like the most hateable homunculi throughout the entire show, and to see Roy finally get his revenge and absolutely destroy him was just brilliant. And it's so badass, and I fucking love it. It's just the culmination of everything that makes Roy Mustang my favorite character in this show, and I love it. Um, so for Attack on Titan here, which is my favorite anime, if you're not new around here, favorite anime, favorite piece of fiction of all time, all the things. Um, uh, I have four here, and the first one to go with is probably a lot of people's favorites. It's Erwin's Garge, because not only is this a it couldn't be a more brilliant conclusion to his character. It is also insanely badass. It is like this incredible last stand of the scouts, and is like once again another genius fucking plan by Erwin. Um, uh, and yeah, all the things that have been said about this, I agree with. Yeah, there's a reason why this is like one of the most legendary moments of the entire show. And then I have Aaron and Reiner's conversation in season 4, where they're like sitting in the room together after Falco uh, essentially is manipulated by Aaron to get that meeting to happen. Um, and the conversation the two of them have, where Aaron like talks about the two of them being the same, it is like a perfect um payoff to their entire dynamic up through that point in the show so far, and their dynamic just continues to be more and more interesting to me. But like that moment is that conversation as a whole was just incredible. What's even better than that is the moment of Reiner and Bertholdt's betrayal, because in my opinion, this is like probably the greatest plot twist in fiction, or one of them at the bare minimum, because um the build up to this was just immaculate. Like it's only with subtle background dialogue that this kind of thing is even initially revealed, and so it feels like when you watch it for the first time, you are just directly experiencing Aaron's shock yourself, because you're like, did I hear that right? There's no way that's actually real, right? Except it is, and that's what makes it masterful. But that is not my favorite moment in Attack on Titan. Um, I used to have a hard time picking my favorite moment between several of these, but upon finishing my rewatch of it, my favorite moment in Attack on Titan became very obvious to me. Um, and that is the conversation that Aaron and Armin have in the finale, because even more so than the Reiner conversation, well, not only is this like a brilliant payoff to the also really good dynamic that these two characters have throughout the entirety of the show, but but it's sort of a reconciliation and the true conclusion, as far as I'm concerned, to everything with Aaron's character, because he admits that he was a young fool who got his hands on too much power. And it is a brilliant conclusion that highlights and finishes off every part of Aaron's character, but especially everything in season 4. Um, and and uh and like, the way that the two of them just hug and like reunite with each other is just and like the way that they talk through the different like ages of them being together, and it's like a reflection of their entire friendship across their lives. It was just oh, it's it's so good in ways that like I just cannot find the words to describe truly. Um, and I guess that like if I had to pick an individual favorite moment in anime, it probably would be that conversation because it is my favorite moment from my number one anime. So I feel like that makes sense to me. Um, but yeah, that was the video. Quite long, over an hour. Uh, uh, if you watch the entire video or any part of it, thank you very much. Uh, Let me know what your favorite anime moments are in the comments below, and also what you thought of my own list. Uh, Once again, thank you for watching if you watched any part of this very long video, and I will see you later. Bye bye.